Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello students. Today we are going to learn about basic geometrical ideas. So let's get started with our today's lesson. In this class we are going to cover the introduction on basic geometrical ideas. Look at these images that are in front of you. Can you think what are the names of these simple two-dimensional shapes? By the word two-dimensional, I mean the images, the shapes that are flat, right? Like three-dimensional shapes, the example is a cube, anything that you can hold in your hand. And by saying two-dimensional, it is something which is flat. Say you draw a square on a sheet of a paper, so it is called a two-dimensional shape. So let us quickly write down the names of these shapes given here on this slide. Look at the first one. I'm sure you are able to recognize that this particular shape is called a rectangle. Let's write it down here. This is a rectangle. Moving to the second one. This shape is oval. Now the third one. It is called a triangle. Now the next one is a square. Here what we see, we call it trapezium. Trapezium. Now here in this shape we can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 sides. So this shape is called a pentagon. Moving to the last shape, I'm sure you know what shape is this. This is circle. Now moving ahead in our lesson, we are going to start with the history of geometry. The term geometry is the English equivalent of the Greek word geometron, where geo means earth and metron means measurement. So anything that we are measuring on this earth, everything is combined in geometry. And do you know the image that you see here? This particular person that you see in this image, he is called the father of geometry. His name is Euclid. We say it is Euclid. Okay? We spell it by E-U-C-L-I-D, but we read it as Euclid. He is known as the father of geometry. Now, the question arises, where can we use it? Where is geometry useful to us in our daily life? Can you think about it? Look anywhere around you. Anything that you see around you has got certain specifications. It has got a certain width, height, weight, etc. All these things comes under geometry. Let me show you some examples. Look at these images here. Do you see in the first image, we have several buildings? Any building that you see, you need, like every architect who's making these buildings, he is very precise to make these buildings. Why? Because each and every wall, every window needs to be measured accurately to make the complete building. We don't want any kind of structure to live in, isn't it? Don't you see that every wall in your house is exactly measured? Isn't it? So here we can see that the first example is all the buildings, houses, bridges, everything that you see, they are all helpful. They are all helpful in the real life as an example of geometry. Okay, moving ahead, we see a window. This is also an example that I just said, that when you see in houses, each and every window is also measured. Now all the furniture that you see in your house, say you have a house, you have a room which measures 20 cross 20 and you need a table for it. So you cannot order a table of any length, any size in your room. You need to be very specific that, say, for a 20 cross 20 room, I need a table which is 4 cross 3. Okay, so this is how we measure things so that everything fits into the other thing very appropriately. So for this, geometry is very much needed. Now the last example that you see, it's the world famous example, which is the biggest example in geometry. What is it? It is the Great Pyramids in Egypt. I'm sure you must have heard of it, right? So you can even imagine that these pyramids, they were made in 2000 BC. In that age, you can imagine that these are like the great examples of architect. These kind of great examples were set at that time when we don't even know what the word geometry means. At that time, people made these huge pyramids. Isn't it amazing? Now, I'm sure if any one of you who's looking to become an architect, who wants to become a civil engineer, everyone needs to be very much familiar with geometry. Okay, so now let us start something that are very important in geometry, the basic points that we are going to learn. Starting with the word point itself. What is point? A point in geometry is a location. Okay, point in geometry is a location. It has no size, no width, no length, no depth. A point is simply a dot. As you can see the full stop. Let me draw a point here. See, this is a point. Can you see I have drawn a point here? This is a point. I take a little broad. So this is also a point. Do you see? Now this is again a point. So what we notice that if the pen or the pencil with which we are drawing, here you can't even see I have drawn a point. If the tip of the pencil or pen that you are drawing the point with, if it's very much sharp, then the point will be very, very thin. Okay, so how can we draw a point? So this is how we can draw a point. So simply just with a sharp tip, we place the pen and whatever image you can see here, this is a point. Okay, how can we name them? Say if this is a point, we write it as point A, because when it's very, very thin, you cannot even see where the point is. So what we do, in order to name the point, we name it with any alphabet. Like I have just written point A. Similarly, I can write point X or point Y, anything. Okay, and how do we read them? We read them as point A, point X, point Y. Can you tell me how I can read this point? It is read as point T. Okay. Now, sometimes you can see that point is written as PT. So PTA. This is the short form of the word point. Okay. So now moving ahead, let us discuss this. Here it says, with a sharp tip of a pencil, mark 4 points on a paper and name them by using the letters like A, B, C, etc. Let us try this question. What is it saying? It is saying that with a sharp tip of a pencil, I have a pen here. Okay, so I'm going to mark with this pen. If you have your notebook ready with you and a pencil, make sure that the tip of your pencil is really sharp. You need to mark 4 points on the paper. I'm going to do it here for you. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I have marked 4 points. And it says that name them. I hope you remember how we can name these points. We name the points by any of the letters. So let's say this is point X, this is point Z, this is point T, and this is point P. So randomly we can put any letter for the points, and this is how we name them. Let us move to the next question. A star in the sky also gives us an example, an idea of a point. Identify at least 5 such situations in your daily life. So can you think of the examples that is similar to point? For example, what they have given is that if you see in the dark sky, the small little stars that you see, they act like points. Is that right? Now, let us think for another example. Say, if you were holding tiny grains in your hand, and somehow these tiny grains fall on the floor. So when you are looking at these small grains on the floor, they will act as small points. So this can be another example. So let's just say that grains, when they fall on floor, can act as an example of point. Let us think of another example. Say you are traveling in aeroplane, and when you look down from the sky, that is from a very high height that you are at. So from there, when you look down, you see that all the houses, trees, they are looking very, very tiny. They look very tiny from top. So this is another example of point. Okay. And similarly, like stars, they said. Another example can be planets. Even if you see those huge planets in the sky, they will appear to be like points in the sky. So this is another example that we can have. What more example can we think of? Say you are making a painting and you have a toothbrush in your hand. So dip the toothbrush in color and with your finger just spray little bit on the sheet. So these little dots that you will see of colors on this paper which you are drawing on, you will see that these paint will act like small little points on the sheet of paper. So this is another example. You can similarly think of several examples. Say even if you look at a compass. On the compass, the tip of the compass is an example of a point. It's very sharp, so be careful, right? Now moving ahead to the next one, let us learn what is a line segment. We have just learned about point. Now we are moving to the next topic, that is line segment. Okay, what is a line segment? Let us see how we can define it mathematically. A line segment is defined as the shortest distance between 2 points. These points are called the end points. Very important. You need to remember this definition of line segment. What is a line segment? Line segment is defined as the shortest distance between 2 points. Let us try to draw this. Say these are the 2 points. Okay. So in between, let me just name it. This is point A and this is point B. So these are the 2 points that we have drawn. And let us try to draw the shortest distance between them. The shortest distance between point A and point B will be a straight line. So a straight line between these 2 points, let me just make these points a bit bigger. Okay, so these 2 points AB and the shortest distance between them, this is known as a line segment. These points are called the end points. This point A and point B, these are called the end points. So they are saying the first question, how we can draw them. So how do we draw a line segment? We draw 2 points and we just join them with a straight line. So let us just name this as P and Q. So this time instead of A and B, I have named it as P and Q. So this is how we draw a line segment. Now they are saying that how can we name them? How we name them? We name them as PQ. Line segment PQ. And here when we write PQ, over the top of PQ we need to draw this kind of a line, this small bar at the top of PQ. This shows that we are talking about a line segment. Now, I want you to be very careful about this. A line segment is of fixed length. We can measure the length of a line segment. Okay. For example, let's say the distance between P and Q is 2 centimeters. So what is the length of my line segment here? It is 2 centimeters. I can measure it. Okay. And how do we read it? If you see, say OR, and you see this kind of a bar over it, you read it as line OR or line segment OR. So we are very clear with this that anytime you see it is written say AB or PQ or 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 anything and with a small bar over it, it represents that we are talking about a line segment which is of a fixed length. I hope it is clear to you. Now let us move to the next slide. Here, let us discuss about line segments with the help of examples. I'm sure then the concept of line segment will be more clear to you. In the first question, it says, name the line segments that you see in these images. So, what kind of images are we seeing in front of us? So, here in the first one, we see a trapezium, right? So, here the trapezium is named as X, Y, Z and L. So let us try to write the name of all the line segments that we see in this image. Okay, we are working for this one. So first that I see here is line X, Y. And because I'm talking about a line segment, so I will draw a bar over it. This is something very important. Okay, now the next one is Y, Z, again with a bar at the top. Now the next one is ZL. So let's write ZL with a bar on top of it. And the last one that we have here is LX. So these are the 4 line segments that we can see in this image. Now we are going to learn about line. We just learned about line segment which was of fixed length. Now let us see what is special in a line. In geometry, a line can be defined as a straight, one-dimensional figure that has no thickness and extends endlessly in both directions. Very important point to notice that a line extends endlessly in both the directions. Let me draw it here. Look at this line segment, say with the point A and point B. I am drawing a line segment. We all know that a line segment is of a fixed length. What I am doing is I am extending this line segment in both the directions. Okay? And when I am extending it in both the directions, I don't know where to stop. So what do? I simply put these arrows at both of these ends, which are pointing in opposite directions. Is that right? What did I do? I extended the line on opposite sides of point A and point B. And because a line can go endlessly in both the directions, so we show it with the help of arrows. And the arrows needs to point in the opposite directions. Okay, so now we have answered how we can draw them. Now let us see how we can name them. Like we learned how we can name the line segments, let us see how we can name the line. Line is written as, say for this line here, we write it as AB and on the top of it, we put a double arrowed bar. Is that right? So here we show a line, we name it by using any two random points, and with the help of these 2 points, we name the line by putting a bar with the arrows pointing in the opposite directions. Okay, so now if I'm writing this here, can you tell me how you are going to read this? This can be read as line PQ. Now, what question arises is, can we draw a complete picture of a line? What do you think? Can we draw a complete picture of a line? The answer is no, we cannot. And why? Because we just learned that line goes endlessly in both the directions, right? So if it is going in both the directions endlessly, I don't know where to stop. And if I don't know where I'm supposed to stop, then how can I measure it? So we can never measure the length of a line. This is very important to remember. Okay?